there if the Canelo fight just can't happen?
To be honest, that was my motivation fight. You know, it's crazy and it makes me laugh with all the antics that Canelo is doing and saying in the media and whatnot.
Floyd Mayweather has joined Terence Crawford on Live to make fun of Canelo for ducking the fight with Crawford. While Canelo is busy promoting his upcoming fight, he's already stirring up headlines with his confrontations within the boxing world. Recently, His Excellency Turki Alalshik disclosed that he had approached Canelo's team with a proposal for the fight. Canelo himself has expressed a willingness to accept such a challenge, suggesting it would be a straightforward win if the financial terms were favorable. His Excellency later announced via a post that he no longer had any interest in pursuing the event. This prompted Alvarez to respond, stating that he was indifferent and not seeking the confrontation. The situation took a turn for the worse when Alalshik returned to X, criticizing Canelo for allegedly pursuing only easy show-only fights. As tensions simmered, Crawford entered the scene, dismissing Canelo's $150 million price tag to fight him as nothing more than excuses.
If it's all about business, then you doing good business. If I'm easy work, I heard him say I'm easy work. If I was easy work, well, you would take all that money that he's offering you. But yet and still.
During his appearance on Sean Porter's The Porterway podcast, one of the hosts asked Crawford about his main source of motivation if the anticipated fight with Canelo Alvarez doesn't materialize. Crawford responded by saying that his primary drive to keep fighting is the prospect of facing Canelo. He also mentioned that Canelo's remarks about a potential matchup between them amused him.
He won't get no credit and all this type of things, but Canelo been fighting smaller guys his whole career. Canelo been making his own catch weight for years.
It's important to highlight that Canelo previously stated that a bout against Crawford would offer him no real benefit. He argued that a victory would be dismissed by critics who would claim Crawford, moving up in weight classes, was simply too small to pose a serious challenge. In response, Crawford noted that Canelo has long been facing opponents from lighter weight divisions. Crawford mentioned that Canelo had been setting his own catch weights for years, pointing out that Canelo has fought smaller opponents like Mayweather and Amir Khan. He also brought up Jermell Charlo, suggesting that Canelo wouldn't earn as much money fighting Berlanga as he would by facing him, yet still had many excuses.
Making his own catch weight for years. Canelo fought a smaller Mayweather. Canelo fought a smaller Amir Khan.
Yeah, he did at 155.
Amir Khan. He fought Jermell Charlo, and I'm pretty sure he didn't make as much money with all those guys except Mayweather, even Berlanga right now, that he will with me. But yet and still, he have all these excuses why he don't want to take a fight with me.
Crawford further slammed Canelo for his many reasons for not taking the fight against him. Bud argued that if it was an easy fight for Canelo, why wouldn't he take the offer from His Excellency and make millions with little effort? He reiterated Canelo's ask of $150 million to fight me, which reaffirms his belief that he is a threat to Canelo, adding, "I'm a threat to his legacy." Terence Crawford may be pushing himself if he fights Canelo Alvarez at 168 pounds, according to a well-known boxing trainer and cutman. Last Saturday in Los Angeles, Terence Crawford cemented his status as a 4-division champion by overcoming Israil Madrimov. Already a 2-division undisputed champion, Crawford stands as one of the most accomplished fighters of his time. However, despite his impressive track record, Bob Santos remains skeptical about Crawford's ability to replicate his previous success against Canelo Alvarez. In an interview with Boxing Scene, Santos said, "I think it'll be a step too big for him, but he has earned the right to try it. I could be wrong. He could prove us wrong. But for the most part, I think that's just a lot to ask of Bud to go to 168. Since Crawford's fight against Madrimov wasn't his best showing, Santos believes, he would deserve the fight based on his career, not just one performance. Given the current situation, it seems unlikely that a showdown between Canelo Alvarez and Terence Crawford will ever come to fruition, particularly after Canelo began clashing with the very individual who made it all possible. With the eagerly awaited bout between Canelo Alvarez and Terence Crawford currently postponed, much to Crawford's chagrin, the pound-for-pound boxing sensation still has a plethora of opportunities available if he sticks to fighting at 154 pounds. Crawford, the newly crowned WBA super welterweight world champion, recently shared his thoughts on potential matchups. When discussing possible fights against Sebastian Fundora, Virgil Ortiz Jr., or Jermell Charlo, the Nebraska native was candid and forthcoming. "It would definitely be Fundora if him and Errol Spence don't fight," Crawford stated. His preference makes sense, as Fundora holds the WBO and WBC unified super welterweight titles. Crawford would have the opportunity to win the bulk of titles at 154 pounds in a matchup with Fundora. The IBF championship is held by Bakram Murtazaliev, the other world champion in the division. Securing the undisputed title at 154 pounds would elevate Crawford to a historic milestone as the first boxer in the four-belt era to claim undisputed champion status across 3 separate weight classes. He has already achieved this remarkable feat at super lightweight and welterweight. Crawford didn't mince words when discussing Alvarez's reluctance to fight him, accusing the Mexican star of making excuses. Crawford sawed, "But yet and still, he has all these excuses why he doesn't want to fight me. If it's all about business, then you're doing good business. If I'm easy work, then you would take all that money that's being offered to you." Crawford cited Alvarez's excessive demands for cash in exchange for fights, both with Benavidez and with himself, as proof that Alvarez posed a threat to the legend. Crawford asserted, "That just lets me know right there that I'm a threat to him. I'm a threat to his legacy because it would be crazy for a guy that started at 135 to come all the way up to 168, your weight, no catch weight, and dethrone you." He got that in the back of his head. The boxing world waits to learn if Crawford will face Fundora, Spence, or another elite opponent in his next bout. But Terence Crawford has every reason to be furious. As one of the most compelling figures in boxing today, with a reputation for drawing crowds and an impressive collection of records and accolades, Crawford's frustration is understandable. Despite his prominence, Eddie Hearn's repeated mentions of Canelo Alvarez during the lead-up to Crawford's fight with Israil Madrimov seemed dismissive. What initially appeared to be a casual remark turned out to be more significant, prompting Crawford to address the issue decisively when the comments surfaced. The boxing world was abuzz with speculation about an Alvarez versus Crawford showdown, only for it to dissolve into a fleeting fantasy. Hearn, at 45, revealed that he had hoped to use the anticipated clash to boost the promotion of Madrimov versus Crawford. When Crawford caught wind of these remarks, he didn't hold back his disapproval. In a conversation on the Porterway podcast, the newly crowned WBA champion called out the British promoter for being disrespectful. Crawford said, "I thought it was disrespectful for Eddie Hearn to lie and say, 'We had to use your name to promote the fight. We didn't use Canelo's name to promote shit. He's trying to stay friends with him, but it's disrespectful to me.'" With a flawless record of 41-0, Crawford made it clear that he had effectively dismissed any queries about Alvarez. He added, "So for him to say, 'We had to use his name to sell the fight,' is disrespect." Alvarez, now 34, is focused on his upcoming bout with Edgar Berlanga, a commitment that has complicated their negotiations. Despite this, the Mexican champion boldly demanded nearly $150 million to make the fight happen, even branding it as easy work for him. Unsurprisingly, Crawford wasted no time in taking a jab at him. The native of Omaha brought out Alvarez's duality in the same podcast. The 61-2 record holder claimed it was an easier assignment, but he also desired hundreds of millions of dollars in compensation. Crawford had previously suggested that he could jeopardize Alvarez's legacy by moving up divisions, making his way to 168 pounds, and then showcasing his skills to defeat him. With that potential clash now off the table, Crawford can shift his attention to other champions in his quest to become undisputed in 3 different divisions. Meanwhile, Alvarez is set to face Berlanga on September 14th. Meanwhile, Terence Crawford has been urged to now pursue a mega fight with Jaron Boots Ennis. The greatest battle right now, in the opinion of famous fighter Bernard Hopkins, is versus Ennis, a fellow American and emerging talent. Hopkins told Fight Hype, "I would want to make Crawford versus Boots Ennis in Philadelphia. Make that today because I believe any other fight past those divisions going up to Canelo is not realistic based on financial realistic or non-realistic." In his early professional career, Ennis attracted a lot of attention and went on to win 32 bouts without losing to become the world champion. In his latest bout, he successfully defended his IBF welterweight world title for the first time, overcoming David Avanesian. The title had previously been taken from Crawford when he achieved undisputed champion status last year. Hopkins added, "In this case, non-realistic, but Crawford versus Boots Ennis is the fight to see. That's a super fight, trust me." At 147 pounds, the two would frequently talk about fighting, with Ennis always urging a shot as he advanced to the required position. Bud moved up in weight to follow Madrimov, where he made history and joined an exclusive group. Thus, it never happened. Crawford had previously said that a matchup with Alvarez would have improved his legacy and resulted in a larger purse. However, that seems to be off the table right now, leaving Crawford's slow plan in ruins. But Tim Bradley remains confident that Terence Crawford can defeat Canelo Alvarez at 168 pounds, despite Crawford's recent showing against Israil Madrimov, the WBA junior middleweight champion. Bradley, much like Sean Porter and other supporters of Crawford, was struck by Crawford's performance against Madrimov. He believes Crawford not only dominated Madrimov, but also tamed him. However, some don't share that view, and it seems most fans felt the same way. After 13 months of inactivity, it appeared as though 36-year-old Crawford had lost his step and was only throwing jabs. Throughout all 12 rounds, Madrimov consistently delivered the more powerful punches, landing right hands that sent Crawford's sweat flying. In my personal scoring, Madrimov dominated with a decisive 10-2 advantage. Tim Bradley expressed his belief to KO Artist Sports that Terence Crawford still has the potential to defeat Canelo Alvarez. He stated that aside from Bivol, Crawford is the only fighter who could pose significant challenges for Canelo, even after witnessing the Madrimov fight.
He poses a threat to Crawford, but if Crawford fights him, I still think that Crawford beats him. He might even knock his ass out. And that's just coming from me. I mean, look, I can be wrong. However, I still think Crawford, he has the goods to do what he needs to do.
Even if Crawford had a shot at securing a Mayweather-esque decision victory over Canelo, he'd squander it by fighting defensively, circling the ring to dodge punches. Once Crawford feels Canelo's power, he'll resort to evasive maneuvers, jabbing and turning the fight into a tedious affair, much like his bout with Madrimov. Bradley expressed concern about the weight difference, noting that taking a punch from a powerful hitter like Canelo, who will inevitably land a blow, could cause hesitation since it only takes one punch to make a difference. However, he also emphasized that someone as serious and dedicated as Crawford, with his skills, mentality, and tenacity, has a very good chance of causing an upset.
You know, the weight definitely concerns me. Taking a punch from a bigger puncher like that, especially Canelo, who will land, you know, it has you second guessing yourself because all it takes is one. However, someone as serious as Crawford, someone that is dedicated, someone with the skill set he has, the mentality that he brings in the ring, and the tenacity, bro, I give him a damn good chance of upsetting the apple cart because he won't be the favorite in the fight. Canelo would be.
Last Saturday night, Crawford clearly struggled with Madrimov's power, and it was evident he was intimidated. If Canelo were to land the same shots Madrimov did, Crawford wouldn't survive for long. Either he'd be knocked out or forced to flee, and there's no chance of a dubious decision in his favor against Canelo, as he got with Madrimov. Bradley commented that while Jaron Boots Ennis is a good fighter, he believes that Crawford would still defeat him if they were to fight. He suggested that Crawford might even knock Ennis out, confident that Crawford has what it takes to win the bout. It's unlikely that Crawford will ever face Boots Ennis, so debating the outcome seems irrelevant. Based on Crawford's showing against Madrimov, I'd bet on Ennis winning by knockout. If Crawford does decide to take on Boots, he'll probably end up on the receiving end of a knockout. If he decides to run, he'll likely face the same fate as he did in round 12 against Madrimov. At this stage, Ennis stands out as the superior fighter, demonstrating skills that surpass those Crawford ever exhibited. Crawford's career lacked the excitement and flair that Boots Ennis brought to the ring, which partly explains why his popularity took longer to build. Watching Crawford's early bouts against Ricky Burns, Ray Beltran, and Victor Postol reveals a stark contrast in entertainment value. Unlike Ennis, whose fights were consistently thrilling, Crawford's early performances often came across as more subdued. Bradley reflected on Crawford's win over Madrimov, acknowledging that it was more challenging but emphasizing that Crawford dominated the fight by doing what was necessary. He noted that although he expected Madrimov, the bigger and stronger fighter, to be more aggressive and play the bully, Crawford effectively tamed him.
Yeah, it was a little bit more challenging. However, Crawford, to me, dominated because he did what he wanted to do. And we didn't get the same fight that I was expecting. I was expecting Madrimov to be more aggressive. He's the bigger, stronger guy, the more the bully. But he was tamed because he had to be.
Crawford didn't get tamed, but it's easy to see why Bradley would claim otherwise. For years, Bradley has been a staunch advocate of Crawford, championing him through thick and thin. It's no surprise that his loyalty remains unwavering, especially during Crawford's most significant fight. Crawford endured a relentless barrage of right hands from Madrimov throughout the match, making it tough to award him more than 2 rounds. His most impressive performance came in the 11th round. Although some fans argue he might have edged the 12th, a closer look at the fight reveals Crawford was hit with too many powerful right hands from Madrimov to secure a victory. In the 12th round, Crawford's punches appeared significantly less forceful compared to Madrimov's. It was as if a 140 pounder was trying to impact a middleweight. Crawford's blows had no impact on Madrimov, who, on the other hand, sent Crawford's head recoiling with each hit, sending sweat flying from his scalp. It was clear that Crawford hadn't managed to subdue Madrimov. Instead, he spent most of the fight ducking and weaving from powerful right hooks that repeatedly snapped his head back. Madrimov consistently delivered the more forceful and precise punches in each round. Crawford relied heavily on jabs, making it challenging to award him many rounds unless you're judging by amateur criteria. The professional boxing world operates on a different set of standards. Bradley remarked that Crawford looked great in the fight, particularly in the last 2 rounds. He noted that Crawford should have started with the aggressive approach he displayed at the end, where he jumped on Madrimov and threw combinations. According to Bradley, Madrimov had nothing to counter when Crawford unleashed those combinations.
I thought that he looked great. I knew that he was in there with a tough guy that didn't fight the way he usually fights, and Crawford had to figure it out, and he did.
Upon reviewing the fight again, it's clear that Crawford didn't throw any combinations during the 11th round, only single punches. While Bradley's recollection might be fading with time, the evidence shows that Crawford focused solely on individual strikes in that round. In the 12th round, Crawford attempted to unleash a series of combinations, but his efforts came at a cost, as Madrimov landed several devastating counters. Scoring the round proved challenging since Crawford managed to connect with more punches, yet the power behind Madrimov's strikes was considerably more formidable. There was no contest. Crawford's decision to evade Madrimov in the final 5 seconds, opting to retreat rather than engage directly, likely cost him the round. Crawford's hasty retreat in the final round didn't reflect well on him. While Bradley might put a positive spin on Crawford's actions, it was clear that Crawford's flight after taking several heavy hits from Madrimov wasn't a good look. Crawford would have lost the 12th round if this had been the Canelo he was up against. While the buzz around Terence Crawford potentially stepping up to face Canelo Alvarez has captured much of the spotlight, a former world champion suggests there's a matchup that might be a more fitting challenge for Bud. In speaking with reporters earlier in the week, Danny Garcia believes Crawford versus Jaron Ennis simply makes more sense. He said, "I mean, that's the fight the fans really want to see. That makes more sense. They're both the same size. I would love to see that fight." Boots is a young, hungry fighter from Philadelphia, and he got so much to prove. And he just wants to fight the best. He wants to get in the ring with the best. He don't care who it is, where it is. I would love to see that fight too. Garcia is also offering his fellow Philly fighter, Ennis, an opportunity to challenge the widely recognized pound-for-pound king Crawford. He said, "Ennis has the tools and the skills, to me, to beat anybody. He's hungry, he works hard, he's a gym rat, and he loves boxing. I seen him grow up. Definitely he's going to be ready for when the time comes." Meanwhile, Ryan Garcia has resumed his online criticism of others. Now that he's back on X, he has started a fresh round of verbal sparring with Canelo Alvarez, Terence Crawford, and himself. Crawford recently discussed his feelings towards Ryan Garcia on Logan Paul's podcast prior to the fight. Ryan Garcia pulled no punches in his critique of Terence Crawford. While he admitted Crawford's undeniable skill, Garcia insisted that Crawford falls short when stacked against himself or Canelo Alvarez. He recognized Crawford's athletic prowess, but maintained that the Nebraskan title holder has yet to reach the same echelon as him or Canelo. Garcia stated, "You are a great, dedicated athlete, but you can't compare to myself or Canelo." Floyd Mayweather, a 50-0 fighting great, discussed the issue with Fight Hype and suggested that Crawford and Benavidez square off. He said, "I think he's a super skillful fighter. Very talented fighter. I thought about this. If he wants to go to 168 and he wants to fight Canelo, and Benavidez wants to fight Canelo, they can't get Canelo. They can fight each other. Benavidez and Crawford. Both you guys are chasing one fighter. Y'all can't get that fight, then y'all should say we'll fight each other." It's an intriguing idea, but it seems highly improbable. Bud has previously stated that he aims to add Canelo's name to his record, not just any larger opponent. Additionally, Benavidez has recently chosen to compete in the light heavyweight division for the foreseeable future after being unable to lure Canelo into a bout. Meanwhile, promoter Oscar De La Hoya reveals that Terence Crawford's impressive performance against Ismail Madrimov has shifted his perspective on Crawford's chances against unified super middleweight champion Canelo Alvarez. De La Hoya initially believed that Crawford's superior skill would outmatch Canelo in their anticipated clash, even at 168 pounds. However, after witnessing Crawford's struggles against WBA junior middleweight champion Madrimov at the BMO Arena in Los Angeles, he now thinks Alvarez would triumph due to his size and talent. Crawford faced numerous challenges in that bout. He was returning from a year-long hiatus, moving up in weight and age, and had rarely, if ever, faced high-caliber opponents in his career. It was a case of smoke and mirrors with Crawford, and Madrimov was the one who revealed it. De La Hoya did not state whether he preferred that Crawford fight opponents at 154 and 147, who are closer to his own weight class, or if he would still like to see Crawford move up to 168 for the Canelo bout. I actually thought Crawford would beat Canelo before I saw him fight Saturday against Ismail Madrimov, said Oscar De La Hoya to the Sean Zettel YouTube site about his belief that Canelo Alvarez would beat Terence Crawford after watching Crawford's fight last Saturday night against WBA junior middleweight champion Ismail Madrimov. He added, "It changed my mind. I think the bigger, better man in the history of the sport will always beat a good small fighter. It's written in the history of boxing. It didn't help with me and Pacquiao because I was over the hill. I was older. I was shot. But in the history of the sport, it always happens." Crawford has spent many years winning against older, less skilled opponents. It was clear that he was not as good as we'd believed because we hadn't seen him in a relationship with someone truly good in at least 10 years. The bigger, better man will always beat the good smaller man, said De La Hoya, about his belief that Canelo would be too big and too good for the smaller Crawford. The Canelo-Crawford fight remains a possibility, but it hinges on His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh agreeing to the $150 million purse that Canelo has requested, a sum that Al-Sheikh doesn't seem inclined to provide. When a man comes to America and wants to deliver to us the best and the biggest fights, how can one argue? It's impossible, said De La Hoya about His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh. He added, "Yes, bring us more. We love boxing, we love the fight game, and we love to see fighting the best. Turkey is making that happen. Let's thank him." When he talks about Canelo not wanting to fight Benavidez and outpricing himself, even Turkey knows that. Canelo Alvarez has a single stipulation: map out future bouts, select his challengers, and hold discussions to finalize agreements. He seeks respect for his choices, and if he's in the mix, desires that promoters allow him to concentrate solely on the fight. However, being the premier name in boxing means everyone is vying for your endorsement, and the process rarely goes as planned. The same scenario is unfolding with his potential matchup against Terence Crawford. At 34 years old, Alvarez is set to face the rising star Edgar Berlanga on September 14th. However, speculation about a possible bout with Bud, orchestrated by His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh, has overshadowed this matchup. To add to the intrigue, the event promoters are eager for Alvarez to finalize and advance this fight. Yet, the Mexican champion is hesitant, preferring to see the bout happen on terms he deems fair, especially when he believes another contender might be more deserving. Alvarez, at 61-22, in a conversation with PPV.com, pointed out that he didn't demand the Crawford fight. He said, "I'm not asking for that fight. I think Teofimo Lopez deserves it more than me." My response to Turkey is this. Yesterday, they texted me to talk about the Crawford fight in February, and I said, "I'm not going to talk about any other fight. I'm focused 100% on this fight. I respect Turkey, but if he wants to work with me, it needs to be my way." Planning has become a real challenge now that the newly crowned WBA super welterweight champion needs to leap 2 divisions and prepare accordingly. Alvarez, putting a damper on things for the moment, has postponed the eagerly awaited bout. This delay has disrupted His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh's plans, leaving him prepared to move forward without Alvarez. Make sure to check out some of our other videos on the screen if you enjoyed this one.